Hi everyone! This layout is inspired by a cut file. I can't quite remember where the cut file came from, but I will link it down below if I find it. It is a cut file of just simple doodled flowers. And I picked the photos for this because the photos are of my husband building me a plant shelf, I guess I would call it. It's just a shelf for me to put all my small little plants, and our neighbor was helping him. So I thought that the flowers went well because it was for, plants. Anyways, um, I had several pattern papers that I could choose from, and I ended up picking this dark background because for these cut files, I decided to not back them. You could call it cheating, you could call it being lazy, but I just felt like they were really cute on their own. They were quite bold because they were white, and especially on top of a dark background, they kind of pop anyway. So I put them on top of a floral background, and it's just flowers on flowers on flowers, and it worked well for me. I've had a sheet of I think it's like a crepe paper collection, but I can't remember which one. It had these really like cute word phrases on it. It's all Valentine themed, and because it was my husband building it, I thought that it would work out well, and I wanted to use them as like the shelves because if you can see in the picture, it's kind of like a triangle shelf. And I wanted to kind of also have the three shelves similar to the shelf my husband has built. So the bottom uh, strip of paper is longer than the middle one, the middle one's longer than the top one. And in between those strips of paper is where like I will spread out my photos and where I end up putting my flowers. For the spacing of each of those shelves, I probably could have spaced it a little bit better. I had a pretty big gap between the bottom and the middle, but then a pretty small gap between the middle and the top. So I ended up having to cover up some of the phrases that are on those strips. But that's okay. For the most part, you can still see them. In this scenario, I put the process photo on the bottom and the finished product on top, just because that's how it kind of ended up being. And to glue my die cuts, I have been using my pen, my glue pen, and it works pretty well actually, even though I feel like I've been drawing glue onto it for a while. Like sometimes you can't see it, so it's still one of my favorite adhesives when it comes to like super intricate embellishments. Now I'm trying to spread my cut files in the same format, like the triangle format, or layout, so that it copies my shelf layout, and I am looking for one more placement for this last one because I feel like none of my other ones overlapped, and now I have like one that overlaps with two, but that works fine for me. So the title is called Blue Shelf, and that might be confusing if you look at the photos because the photos, it's just a shelf, it's not blue, but I do eventually paint it blue. So I like to call it Blue Shelf, and that's the title of my page. I picked these thickers, and I might have mentioned this when I put my page kit together, but there's like a tiny shine of green in the lettering, like how it's raised, and I think it looks really nice when I mash it with like another layout that's like pink and green. So the flowers in the main pattern paper in the background just works really well with those thickers. Now I'm just adding the additional embellishments that I had. I picked out a few fabric bows. I did have some hearts. They're like clear epoxy hearts, I think. Oh, they're not clear. They're just regular epoxy hearts. I've am adding my journaling. Originally, I had put down some labels and there was space for me to put my journaling in there, but the label is quite thin. So instead, I decided to just put it on the side of one of my die cuts. And I didn't have that much journaling. It was like 2 sentences. But I didn't want it to be sticking out too much, so I did keep them quite short and just stack them on top of one another. It ended up being a great place for me to also add my bows, these white fabric bows, and then I added some gold ones too to other parts of the layout. Then I also add on other embellishments that I had pulled. I did look through a bunch of the scrap pieces of paper that I had put in the kit, and unfortunately they just didn't make the page because I felt like the page was quite full already with the die cuts everywhere. But I did have some stickers that I felt like would layer nicely on top of the photos, especially these green and gold ones with the arrows. I felt like they kind of gave some direction as to where to look. And because I like to work in threes, I made sure to have 3 rows of them. I also have a lot more sheets of these, so I definitely want to make a dent in my supplies of these arrowed stickers, as you call them. I also add some sequins. Oh, I guess I also added these pink phrase stickers. They were a brand new sheet I haven't used yet, and I tried to pick things that were kind of applicable for the layout. One was fun, fun, fun. The other one was hooray. And the last one was weekend, since I'm pretty sure that they worked on this over the weekend. I also had the little tub of sequins, and I pulled out like this really dark brown colored sequins. It works well because the page is so dark already, and there's this maroon color in the background, so I think it matched that pretty well. And I end up just being able to use that color, which is a really rare color for me to use, just worked out perfectly for me. I'm adding the date in that open label space now, where I originally thought my journaling could go, but the date worked out pretty well. And then I also had these ampersands with the wood veneer, and those were pretty nice centers to some of my flowers. I had to cut off a piece of one of the die cuts, and I ended up layering it underneath the photo, thinking it'd be a good place to add to it. Hope you guys enjoy this process video. Have a fantastic day.